Vi is a character that's been put under difficult circumstances over and over and over again. And decisions that she made due to these challenging circumstances have been widely judged. Whether it was organizing the heist, which led to Season 1 events unfolding, whether it was taking Powder with to the heist, and not taking Powder to Vanda's rescue mission, whether it was hitting Powder upon finding out she's responsible for Vanda's demise, giving up on Jinx on the bridge after getting attacked by her, and finally, whether it was joining forces with Caitlyn and becoming part of the Enforcers. Enforcers were responsible for killing Vi's parents in Silco and Vanda's revolution. To a child that tends to see the world in black and white colors, the responsibility was clear. But looking at things from a wider perspective that Shode has provided, and that she has clearly gained over time, who is to blame, really? The particular enforcer that did it, Vanda and Silco for starting the revolution, the council that created injustices that led to it all. Most subjects Arcane touches upon are complicated, layered, and so was Vi joining the organization she once despised, which she vocalized multiple times.
What I don't understand is how you can work with them. We were here, we saw what they did. I grew up knowing I'm less than them. That my place is down there. I want Powder to have more than that, and I'm willing to fight for it.
You enforcers are all the same, just asshole criminals in fancy uniforms. You know what? Find Silco yourself.
What, you don't have parents?
No. They were killed by enforcers.
Me. Joined the Peanut Patrol. And I thought she had no sense of humor.
Accepting the badge from Caitlyn had its origins though, and it was neither a decision out of character, nor one that came lightly, despite the appearances that led to many people blaming her. Not on my channel though. I made a poll, so far 5,000 people voted and over 90% don't blame Vi. It's partially the audience gathered here on the channel that's very smart. I really appreciate all of your insightful comments. And it's also the fact that objectively speaking it just made sense. Let's have a closer look. We know that Arcane started off with Vi angrily looking at Piltover, holding her fist tightly and thus beginning her journey initially focused on violence. That journey of hers ended in a place of peace, with Vi erasing part of her name in the intro song, as well as having her name on her cheek scarred and transformed. By the end of Vi's path, despite clearly joining Caitlyn within the forces, as we can assume based on League of Legends lore and wearing her badge again, she is no longer violence-oriented. Like Vander, she eventually chose peace. He once gave up his gauntlets and she gave up fighting attributes in the final Arcane moments. Vi in the League of Legends lore has always been a Piltover-based champion, an enforcer, one that's been closely cooperating with Caitlyn.
I'm glad you'll have my back, Vi. Let's keep the chaos to a minimum, shall we?
There's even a story called Child of Zone written from her perspective, fantastically showing us an example of how both her and Caitlyn cooperate together and how Vi reflects on the idea of justice.
What's the difference between law and order? Can you have one without the other? And what does either have to do with justice? Maybe it depends on who you ask. If you asked me, well, the young me, justice comes by cracking skulls.
But we know her default lore position as not a reason enough for an audience often unfamiliar with the canon. And reaching that final outcome needed a proper character development. Something that justifies story-wise Vi's decision, going from hatred to peace, from Zone to Piltover, from being against the enforcers to cooperating with them and becoming a warden. Writers provided that by showing us how Vi was forced to reconsider her views as a result of other people's actions. First, it was Vanda's. Vi has always been a successor to Vanda's position, protecting people that she loves, providing an example, being looked up to.
Those kids look up to you.
Yeah, I know.
You know, but you don't know.
And by following Vanda's ideals and his rules, she was initially forced to question her own approach to Piltover upon finding out that Vanda was cooperating with Grayson, an enforcer, for the greater good, to avoid further escalations.
We had a deal, Vanda. You keep your people off my street, and I stay out of your business.
Which initially she held against him.
What I don't understand is how you can work with them.
But fairly certain that remained within her. As an example of how coming from Piltover and Zone doesn't necessarily need to mean conflict. Then it was of course Caitlin. A path provided in Season 1 through Caitlin's actions wildly redefined Vi's views, forced her to reassess them. Vi, seeing Caitlin, someone who's an enforcer to her very core, someone who has always wanted to be one, can be peace-oriented and wants to fix the divisions between the cities, realized that hatred she assumed in Act 1 is now pretty much void. She quickly went from going against her
You don't know anything.
to defending her.
Echo. She believes what she's saying, okay? She's not your enemy.
And while naturally it was a particular person that Vi was not entirely objective about, her journey towards giving up the hatred had to start somewhere. Triggered by Vander, fully realized by Caitlin. I think what also matters is the fact Vi, while having had love in Act 1 of Season 1, having had a family, Vander, Klago, Mylor, most of all Powder, she lost all of them and was forced to spend years in Stillwater alone, without any support whatsoever, knowing that she failed by leaving Powder behind. She wasn't going to make that mistake again, and as she entered further acts of her story, she was depleted of love and willing to go extra distances to keep safe those that she cares for. Ever since then, she was going to follow the final message Vander left her.
You've got a good heart. Don't ever lose it. No matter how the world tries to break you. Protect the family.
Notice how she didn't give up on people that she cared about even when they clearly rejected her. She was vulnerable more than others, but she was showing it less than others. She stayed there for Jinx, despite being attacked by her. She hugged Echo despite Echo accusing her of working for Silco. She stayed by Caitlin's side even though Tobias clearly despised her. Hopefully only at the moment. In my head there's a canon that they have this wonderful father-in-law bond going on. Vi not only felt directly responsible for Piltover and Zon's escalation caused by Jinx's actions, she also felt responsible for Cassandra Kuraman's death that led to her not fully belonging neither in Piltover nor anymore in Zon. But I think it was never really her role to belong anywhere. Instead, it was precisely to be the pillar of support for those that she loves. A foundation created by the events of Season 1, Act 1 and Vanda's message. When saving Jinx in Season 1, she left Caitlin, Echo and the Gemstone quest behind, just to be there for Jinx. When she joined Caitlin, she was there for her, even when during the funeral she did not feel welcome at all in her house due to Tobias' grief-centered despise towards her. When she rejoined Jinx, she immediately offered staying together in Victor's commune. She gave all of herself to those she cared about, placing herself in the second place every single time. No doubt losing something herself, but disregarding it. Anytime she chose to support Jinx, she had to leave Caitlin behind. Anytime she chose to be there for Caitlin, she left Jinx behind. She always lost no matter what she did. She spent years in Stillwater not knowing what happened to her sister, stuck in almost a limbo of a kind because she pushed Powder away. She is a pretty tragic character because she's been constantly torn between expectations towards her. Jinx wanting her to be her sister, expressing time and time again how much she despises enforcers.
Who's she?
Who are you?
It's okay. She's a friend.
Savika wasn't lying?
You're with an enforcer?
We never thought my sister would turn Bluebelly.
Caitlin, on the other hand, wanting her to become an enforcer.
You can show that not all of Zorn supports Jinx. We can show them. Together.
Imagine being stuck in the middle of that. So when Caitlin offered her the badge, she initially refused.
I watched them kill my parents. Do you have any idea how that feels?
Yes, I do.
Caitlin, as we know, wasn't thinking clearly at the time. She was lost, driven by despair, grief and anger. Now I made a separate video on that topic. In this very moment, almost manipulating Vi by bringing up being on a certain side, going against Vi's nature, and suggesting Vi's role is to become a symbol, sending a message that not all of Zon is bad. A message that's fairly hypocritical to begin with. Look, they're not all bad, which on its own seems to suggest that Zon is somehow inferior to Piltover. Caitlin, being as smart as she is, understood however she made the wrong choice by offering her the badge.
I was wrong to spring the badge on you. It's just, every way I slice it, if I go after your sister alone, one of us comes back in a box.
I wouldn't blame her at all for taking that step. She just lost her mother, and on top of her other reasons, she also clearly wanted to make sure Vi stays by her side. Now, circumstances changed after the second zone attack, one that's been orchestrated by Ambessa to further antagonize the conflict and have Peltovians reach out for drastic measures. An attack that led Vi to realizing that Caitlyn could have died.
Thought for sure you were gonna get yourself killed.
No doubt yet another motive to stay by her side no matter what. And it was only when it became clear it's between either a full-scale invasion, no doubt leading to many casualties, and her own idea of a single strike team mission, one that could be under control, as long as she was part of it. It's only then when she accepted the badge.
Locate Jinx, dismantle Shimmer, and neutralize any agents still loyal to Silco.
She didn't do it because she let go of her anger. She didn't do it because she let go of her grief. She didn't do it because she wanted to. She didn't do it because she felt a calling. At least not at this point, because I feel like later on she will. We can clearly see she was not happy to be in the uniform. She did it because it was what was best for both Zon and for Caitlyn. She did it because she already saw Caitlyn was losing control over her emotions. She wanted and needed to be there for her, to protect her from herself, as well as to protect people of Zon, the only way she knew how to at the moment, by joining the Enforcers, which gave her the authority to arrest Camp Barons. Sure, she could have been there even without the badge, like she did with Jace in episode 8, but in that moment all eyes were set on her, on the mission, and they needed to do it right.
No more rogue mission. No more reckless plans.
Vi accepted being a symbol, despite not ever wanting to be one. Despite knowing in the eyes of Zon she's gonna become a pariah, a sellout. And she did it led by her ultimate motive, one that's been her driving force all along, keeping safe those that she loves. And we're talking not just about her love for Caitlyn, but also for Zon, knowing at the moment she's protecting it the only way she can. I think there's also another reason that led to Vi accepting the badge that's not often mentioned. It was the distances Caitlyn was willing to go for her, showing just how much trust she's willing to place in her, going as far as threatening to withdraw Kiriman funding for the Enforcers.
You're something of a legend amongst the Enforcers. Caitlyn made quite a scene at the station when they tried to deny your enlistment. Is it all true? You went after Silco alone when the Council wouldn't back you.
Kate said all that.
She said, if every Enforcer had a heart like yours, we could take on Noxus itself.
So, eventually she had many valid reasons to do it. Piltover's citizens were calling for a full-scale invasion, for Zonite blood. The Council was willing to let it happen.
If we do not defend ourselves with Hextech, our principles will mean nothing.
No matter how humiliating wearing a badge might have been, Vi proved to Piltovians not all of Zon supports Jinx, and an invasion harming civilians that weren't fully opposed to Piltover would not only be cruel, but also counterproductive. She put her own dignity aside to help Zon and take real responsibility for her sister's actions. Now that somehow led to the audience calling her a traitor, and I think that's an ultimate misunderstanding of a character that always put others first. Despite not ever aiming to become a symbol, she became one because it matters. I think to Vi it was never important where she is. She wasn't as Zon focused as Echo. To her it only mattered if she was with the people that she loved. Whether it was with Vander and Powder in Zon, with Jinx in Victor's commune, or with Caitlyn in Piltover Mansion where she eventually stays. It doesn't matter what place it is. It only matters that she's with the ones that she loves. But I think end of the day, very much like in League of Legends lore, being an enforcer or a warden is part of her final identity, no matter what people might say. When she gave up the badge in Act 2, she left an empty spot, clearly unconsciously willing to fill it again later on. And in Act 3 she once more assumed that position wearing a badge, but this time not a uniform resembling so much that of her parents' murderers. She wore her own version. And similarly so, she decided to make being an enforcer her own, to claim it, and instead of villainizing it, showing how it can serve as an example of keeping the peace alive. Which takes me back to the Child of the Zone story, providing a fantastic example of how Caitlyn and Vi work together, not just for Piltover, but also for Zon.
Putting him away, we saved both Piltover and Zon a lot of chaos. Do you ever think that something better might come out of that chaos?
She looks at me, sighing softly.
Maybe. Or maybe something even worse. A lot of people would have to die for anyone to find out, and I can't let that happen. So we fight. And we do what we have to keep things together. That's what the law does. What we do. We preserve order.
Law? order? Can you have one without the other? And what does either of them have to do with justice? If you had asked the younger me, she might have had an answer. Ask me now, and I'm not so sure anymore.
And if you'd like to know more about Caitlin's motives in Season 2, I'm leaving you with this video. Thanks so much for watching.